So now we're gonna set up Redux and we're gonna have a global store. And it's kind of one of the easiest thing, but people think it's hard or something like very complicated. But actually having React Redux is simply one of the easiest thing and the simplest thing ever. Okay, so it's gonna help us create a store. So we're gonna have a global state that's applicable across all of our application and our pages and our components. Okay, so simply we're gonna have a store. Okay, so this is gonna be our store, and in the store we're gonna have some reducers. For example, we're gonna have the user. For example, you can have products, you can have anything right here, counter, anything. So our store holds a lot of reducers, and all of these reducers have a state. For example, the user. Okay, so let's work only with the user. We have a user reducer in the store. For example, the default state is gonna be null. Okay, and what we do when we work on our application, we can dispatch an action and change the informations the user. So for example, like when we log in, okay, before we log in the store, we're gonna have a user reducer. The user is gonna be null. This is the default state. And when we log in, we're gonna go and dispatch an action. That's all it's gonna do, is gonna take the user that's gonna be null and then fulfill it with the informations that we want. So simply like when we work in the login. So before we log in is gonna be null. Then and we log in like this, and this is the informations that we get after login. So we wanna take these informations and then dispatch it and put it inside this the reducer. So now in our store we have a user that has all of these informations. And the great thing about this, like if I wanna get the username or the picture of the user, like I can go in any components in any page of our project and simply access the store and access the user and get any attributes I want and get the token, everything. So it's actually quite easy, and the actions is gonna be like you define what type of action you want. So when you work with the user to update something in the store, for example, when I update the user, you have like a defined action. So for example, it's gonna be the payload that we pass. Okay, so that's gonna be this payload. So this is the payload, this is the action, this payload that we pass to the store. And something like, let's say for example, when I just pass false, we can just, the action that we're gonna pass is gonna be false. So the payload is gonna be false. But true, 0, 1, any data or any type of data you want to pass. It's actually quite easy, and this is just an explanation, So I know when I apply this thing and when we work with it, it's gonna be so simple, so easy, and I just don't get the fuss about it quite hard or something like this. So just don't worry, it's actually very, very simple. I want to set up Redux in our application. So simply we're gonna install some packages first. So npm and we're gonna need Redux, and also gonna need React Redux. So this is gonna work as a bridge and give us the provider. You're gonna see later. And also we're gonna have the div tools. So we're gonna have Redux div tools extension, and they're gonna help us display. Okay, sorry, let's write straight here. Redux div tools extension. Okay, so this is give us the ability to display everything that we done in the browser, and we're gonna see our state right there, and we can see our changes live. Okay, so we're gonna install these 3 tools or 3 packages, and right here first of all we're gonna need the ability to create store. Okay, so we're gonna need the functions that are gonna help us create the store. So we're gonna import, and we're gonna import the create store function from Redux. So this way we're gonna create our store using this function. Also we're gonna need the provider that's gonna put the store in the provider and cover our whole application with the provider the same way we done with the router. So we're gonna see later. So import, and we're gonna use the provider. It's gonna be from React. Okay, React Redux. Okay, and also we're gonna need to use the div tools. So we're gonna import, and it's gonna be compose with div tools, and it's gonna give from Redux div tools extension. So we're gonna create a store. So simply gonna have const, and we're gonna have a store. We're gonna use the create store function, and you're gonna pass the reducer to it. So we're gonna have many reducers. You can have as many as you want. So we're gonna have a root reducer, so that's gonna contain everything. So root reducer, we're gonna create this after a little bit. So the root reducer, and then we're going to use the compose with div tools function to see this in the browser. So now we're going to create the root reducer, okay, that can contain all of our reducers. Okay, so simply we're going to take that, we're going to go to the source folder, we're going to create a new folder, we're going to call it reducers, and inside this we're going to have an index, and here we're going to have our root reducer. Okay, so right here we're going to have const, it's going to be our root reducer, and it's going to be combine reducers, which is a function which is gonna get from Redux. So we're gonna take this and we're gonna write here import and then from Redux. Okay, and this is gonna help us create many reducers inside this reducer. So now, for example, when I create a reducer, let's call the state of it, it's gonna be user. Okay, and then you pass everything, when you pass like the reducer itself. So for example, user reducer, and we're gonna create the user reducer also. So before that, we're gonna export. So we're gonna export default, and it's gonna be root reducer. Okay, so now you can go back to the index, and now this root reducer, you can import it simply like this. Okay, so now we have the store, so we can now add it right here. So we're gonna, our application is gonna be all inside the provider. So right here we can have a provider, okay, and the provider, let me as a components provider, okay, like this, and the provider, everything is gonna be inside the provider. Okay, remove this from here and add it after the provider. Okay, and inside the provider, we're gonna pass the store, which is gonna be the global store that is gonna cover all our applications. So everything inside our application can access the store from the provider. So the store that we're gonna pass is simply gonna be the store that we created right here that has the root reducers. This is the root reducer. Also, we're gonna need the user reducer that has everything related to the user. Okay, so we're gonna create the user reducer. So inside the reducer, we're gonna plus, and then we're gonna have, let's call it the user reducer.js, and inside this we're going to define the user reducer. So export, and it's going to be function, and we're going to call it user reducer, and inside this function we're going to have something. So we're going to have the state, and also we're going to have the action. So this state is going to be the default state in the beginning, so in the beginning is going to be null, so you can define the state to be null. And right here we're going to see the actions that we got, and we're going to define the type of it. So we're going to have switch, and we're going to take the action dot type. Okay, and now we're going to understand something. Okay, so right here we're going to have many cases. So you define the action that you want to pass. So for example, when the user want to log in, so this is going to be the case of login. So all we want to return is the action.pload. Okay, like this. Okay, so now when we log in, we're gonna dispatch an action that's gonna be login, and the payload, we're gonna return the action.payload. So we're gonna update this state with this payload, and as I said in our example, this is gonna be the payload itself, and we define the login so we know what type of operation that we making. Okay, and in this switch case, you're gonna also have the default, and the default, which is gonna be return the simple normal state. So this way we define the user reducer also. Now we can go back right here, and we can simply import it. Now if we went to the browser to our application, so this is our application, let's see what's the problem right here. So imported as combined residue was not found in Redux. Okay, so this is where this is gonna be in the reducers. Okay, so let's go back right here, and this is the combined reducer, is gonna be like this. Okay, so this is partial. Let's go back right here, and we're gonna refresh, and everything is all right. So now if we open the inspection elements, and right here we can go to the Redux. So you open this by using F12. Okay, and when we go right here, we're gonna find this tab Redux, and you want to access it by using this Redux DevTools in the Google Chrome extensions. You're also gonna have it in other browsers, and you install this. This is what we install, and it's gonna help us display our state in the browser. So right here we're gonna have another option that's called Redux, so we're gonna access to it by using this. Okay, I'm gonna install this, and right here, as you see now in the Redux, this is our state. This is the default state. See, we have the user, so the user reducer is now here, and you can look at it in different ways to understand where you're at. And as you see, this is the default state, is gonna be null. So right here, as we define it, if we went back to the user reducer, it's null. So for example, you can add like something to it, like welcome. So this is our state, it's a string that's called welcome, and this is it. So you can define like a state for it. This is a default state, and now when we dispatch the action login, we're gonna change that to any type one. So right here, this is the user null, but as I said, it's gonna have all of these informations right here. So it's gonna be user, and inside this is gonna be an object and has all of our informations while we log in. Okay, and then we can access it all over our application. So you can go to any route, anything, you're always gonna be accessible in our application to all different components and pages. And that's the beauty of the setup of a global store that you can access by anyone. Okay, so this was like pretty simple, and I hope you like this, and let's see what we have next.